On my 20th birthday, my mom splashed cold water on my face and said it's time to man up and move out. I woke up gasping, disoriented, to see my stepdad David standing in my doorway with all my belongings already packed in trash bags. They'd been planning this. My mom stood behind him with her arms crossed, looking at me like I was some kind of pest they'd finally worked up the courage to exterminate. She said I'd been nothing but a burden since my dad died in Afghanistan 13 years ago, that they'd kept me fed and housed out of obligation, but I was 20 now and it was time to stop wasting their money on my therapy sessions and anxiety medication. David nodded along like some kind of backup singer, adding that I'd been crying about the same nightmares for years and it was pathetic. They literally pushed me out the front door before I could fully process what was happening, my bags hitting the concrete driveway with a thud that felt like my entire life crashing down. I had nowhere to go, no friends close enough to crash with, no other family in the area. I ended up taking 2 buses to a homeless shelter downtown, the kind of place I never thought I'd actually need. The intake counselor was this tired-looking woman in her 50s, who'd probably heard every sad story in existence. I sat in a plastic chair filling out forms, my hands shaking so badly I could barely write. Then my phone buzzed. I saw my stepdad's name pop up. He'd blocked me right after kicking me out, but apparently unblocked me just long enough to send one final message. At least your dad had the decency to die in Afghanistan, followed by a laughing emoji. Something inside me completely shattered. I started crying right there in the intake office, ugly sobbing that I couldn't control. The counselor immediately came over and put her hand on my shoulder, asking what was wrong with genuine concern in her voice. I couldn't speak, so I just showed her my phone. She read the text message, then glanced down at my intake form where I'd written my dad's name and that he died in combat. Her entire body went rigid. She set down her clipboard and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then she asked me a question that made no sense. Did you ever actually see your father's body? Did you attend a real burial service? I stared at her, confused. What kind of question was that? Of course I went to his funeral. I was 7 years old, sitting in the front row while people talked about his sacrifice and service. She held up one finger, telling me to wait a moment, and turned to her computer. She typed frantically for about a minute, clicking through screens, her face getting paler with each passing second. Finally, she turned the monitor toward me and said something that made the entire room spin. Your father didn't die in Afghanistan. He's alive. He's at Palmer VA Medical Center. He's been in their psychiatric ward for 10 years. My chest felt like it was caving in. That was impossible. We had a funeral. I went to grief therapy for years. My mom cried about being a widow. We moved to a different state specifically because the memories were too painful. The counselor's voice was urgent now. She said, I needed to see my father today, right now, before my parents realized I knew the truth, because the moment they found out, they'd know someone was coming after the benefits they'd been collecting in his name. She grabbed her keys and drove me to Palmer herself. The whole ride felt surreal, like I was watching my life happen to someone else. We walked down a long hallway that smelled like industrial cleaner and medication, and then I saw him, my dad. Not dead, not a memory, but actually sitting there in a hospital room. He looked older, thinner, but it was definitely him. I managed to choke out the word dad, and his face completely crumbled. He started crying immediately, saying they told him he'd never see me again, that they'd convinced him I knew the truth and had chosen my mom over him, that he thought I hated him for getting sick. While I was trying to process that my entire childhood had been built on a massive lie, my phone buzzed again. A notification from my bank. I looked at the screen and felt my stomach drop. My parents had just drained my entire college fund, the account I'd been adding birthday money and work checks to since I was 15. Every single dollar, gone. Account closed. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. My dad saw my phone screen when I dropped it, and his voice broke as he read the notification. He told me that all of his combat pay had been set up to go directly to me every month for the past 10 years, for my future, for college, for whatever I needed. He'd never seen a single penny of it because he trusted my mom to take care of me. The next morning, I signed him out of Palmer. The doctor said he'd been ready for discharge for years, but needed family to release him to. We drove to my mom, but stepdad's house together, my dad's hands shaking the entire way. When David opened the front door and saw my father standing on his porch, very much alive, his face went through 5 different shades of white. My mom appeared behind him and dropped her coffee mug, and it shattered across the floor in a spray of ceramic and brown liquid.